Good morning. Welcome to the Committee on Women and Gender Equity, jointly with Committee on Technology. At this time, we ask that you please silence all electronics. If you wish to testify, you must see one of the sergeant at arms in the back. And at no point, please do not approach the dais. Chair, you may begin.
Sergeants, can you bring a gavel? I officially can start. Good morning, everyone. I'm Councilmember Amanda Farias, Chair of the Committee on Women and Gender Equity. I'm excited to be joined by Chair of the Committee on Technology, Councilmember Carmen de la Rosa, for today's hearing on protections against harassment in digital and physical spaces for women and gender-expansive people. This morning, we've been joined by Council members Aldebol, Schulman, and Riley. To start us off, I'm going to turn and read a statement from Councilmember Lewis. Today, we'll be hearing resolution number 99, sponsored by the council member declaring May 28th as Menstrual Hygiene Day in the city of New York. To begin her statement, firstly, thank you, Chair Farias and de la Rosa, for your leadership and for advancing this important resolution before the committee. Today, I am proud to bring forward Resolution 99, which designates May 28 as Menstrual Hygiene Day in the city of New York. This resolution speaks to an issue that is often overlooked, yet impacts millions of individuals across our city and country every single day. Menstrual hygiene is not a luxury. It is a fundamental component of health, dignity, and equity, yet far too many individuals, particularly low-income women and young people, continue to face barriers in accessing basic menstrual products. We know that period poverty is real. It forces individuals to make impossible choices between food and hygiene, causes students to miss school, and pushes people out of work and daily life simply because they lack access to essential resources. Millions of individuals lack access to adequate products, and the consequences extend beyond physical health to mental health, educational attainment, and economic stability. When individuals are forced to use makeshift materials or use products beyond safe limits, it puts their health at risk and perpetuates cycles of inequality that we are actively working to dismantle. Designating Menstrual Hygiene Day in New York City is an important step in breaking stigma, advancing public awareness, and reinforcing our commitment to ensuring that all individuals can manage their health with dignity. It creates space for education, for community engagement, and for continued advocacy to expand access to menstrual products across our schools, shelters, and public institutions. This resolution affirms that menstrual health is public health and that equity requires us to address even the most basic needs of our communities with urgency and intention. I urge my colleagues to support Resolution 99. Thank you. As many of you are aware, today's hearing falls on Denim Day. Denim Day is recognized on the last Wednesday in April in honor of Sexual Assault Awareness Month as the longest-running sexual violence prevention and education campaign in history. Denim Day asks community members, elected officials, businesses, and students, and all individuals to make a social statement with their fashion by wearing jeans as a visible means of protest against the misconceptions that continue to surround sexual violence. People are encouraged to wear denim to combat victim blaming and educate others about sexual violence. This year on Denim Day, the Committees on Women and Gender Equity and Technology will examine protections against harassment, including sexual harassment. Harassment is a complex issue rooted in societal norms that reinforce gender and power disparities and disproportionately impacts women and gender-expansive people. According to a 2022 poll of workers in New York State, more than a third of cisgender women and half of respondents who identify as transgender or gender-expansive people reported experiencing sexual harassment in the workplace. And while this number is far too high in workplaces, harassment laws proved a structured, civil, and specialized legal framework that forces employers to prevent and stop harassment based on protected characteristics. But we know that harassment is a pervasive issue that can occur anywhere, including public spaces and online. It can be difficult for police to respond to complaints and for people to feel their concerns have really been addressed. There are complex legal issues at play, and the burden of proof for a criminal response is higher than in the civil system. Some speech is protected by our freedom of speech rights, and we lack jurisdiction for bad actors outside the country. Research has shown that as many as 80% of cisgender women in New York City have experienced some form of street harassment. Additionally, online harassment against women is escalating, with nearly 1 in 4 women reporting that they have experienced online abuse. The impact is even more severe for LGBTQ+ women, with a recent survey showing more than half of LGBTQ+ women reported having experienced online harassment. So today we'll ask the administration how they are planning to address harassment in New York City, what resources are available for those who have experienced harassment, and how can we better protect women and gender-expansive people from harassment. Now I'd like to invite Chair De La Rosa to deliver her opening statement.
Thank you. Good morning and welcome to our hearing. I'm Councilmember Carmen De La Rosa, Chair of the Committee on Technology, and I'm pleased to join my colleague, Chair Amanda Farias, for this very important hearing on protections against harassment in digital and physical spaces for women and gender-expansive people, especially on Denim Day, a day dedicated to raising awareness about sexual violence and standing in support of victims. Sexual harassment and harassment more broadly has evolved over the years. With advancements in technology, harassment is no longer limited to physical spaces. It has taken new forms digitally on social media, messaging platforms, and even in virtual reality. Now, bad actors also commit harassment, fraud, stalking, and other crimes through digital means that directly affect people's lives in the physical world. In many cases, abusers gather personal information about their victims online and weaponize it to commit cyberstalking, doxing, identity theft, blackmail, non-consensual image sharing, sometimes even with AI-generated deepfakes and other forms of abuse. Photos, location, workplaces, schools, family details, IP addresses, phone numbers, devices, and daily routines can all be collected and misused. This information may be shared directly by individuals without realizing the risk, exposed through data breaches or obtained through apps and online services when users agree to broad data sharing terms without reading the privacy policies. Once available, this information can be weaponized to harass, stalk, threaten, impersonate, blackmail, and exploit victims online. More needs to be done to effectively prosecute these offenses and to ensure that future acts of online harassment and abuse are deterred. Recent reports indicate that online harassment has increased significantly, with some reports showing a rise of around 17% in the last year alone. However, the real number may be even higher, as many victims choose not to report or speak about their experiences. Some victims may feel ashamed, afraid, unsupported, or hopeless about receiving justice or protection. Anyone can be a victim of online harassment. However, reports show that women, transgender individuals, and members of the LGBTQ+ community are often disproportionately targeted online. For this reason, digital safety and privacy education must be a top priority. Protecting personal information online is no longer optional. It is an essential part of ensuring that personal safety and freedom of everyone, especially women and gender-expansive people. With our new reality of significant online connectivity and future promises of increasing technological sophistication, we need to be even more prepared to protect vulnerable people from online harassment. Just this past January, over a 9-day period, the ex-AI chat box Grok generated and posted over 500,000 intimate deepfake images of women, in the overwhelming majority of the cases without their consent, prompting bans by multiple international governments and investigations by the EU. With the spread of IoT devices and remote control technology, abusers can harass victims remotely through their smart home devices, including cameras, locks, thermostats, speakers, and security systems. As with abuse online and in virtual reality, the abuser can be located anywhere, blurring the territorial boundaries. However, the legal system still largely depends on territorial jurisdiction, making it difficult to identify, investigate, and prosecute some abusers. Today, we wish to learn from the administration about the initiative that they have taken on to combat online harassment, educate New Yorkers about their rights under local, state, and federal laws, as well as the resources available to New Yorkers to support victims of online harassment. The committee is also looking forward to hearing testimony from the public for a better understanding of the present challenges around online harassment, as well as what measures can be taken to mitigate and protect these harms from occurring. Finally, I want to express my sincere gratitude to the council, Irene Bichowski, and policy analyst Eric Brown, as well as my staff, James Burke, Hiba Ahmad, Frey Familia, for their effort in putting these hearings together. I'd also like to recognize the technology committee members and council members who are present, Riley, and I think that's it from the technology committee, but we also have council members Aldebal, council member Shulman here with us as well. I will now turn it over to the committee council, so Chair.
Thank you, Chair De La Rosa. Additionally, today the committees will also hear the following legislation. Pre-considered introduction number T26-1761, sponsored by Deputy Speaker Williams, in relation to reporting on efforts to combat sexual harassment and equal employment opportunity violations at city agencies, and to repeal Local Law 101 for the year 2018 relating to the climate surveys and action plans to combat sexual harassment and equal employment opportunity violations at city agencies. I will now read a statement from Deputy Speaker Williams. Thank you, Chair Farias, for hearing this bill today. For many New Yorkers, especially those working in city government, the workplace should be somewhere they feel safe and respected. But too often that is not the case, and when issues arise, the response can feel unclear or incomplete. This bill is about getting a clear picture of what is actually happening inside our agencies and how those situations are being handled. Right now, while anti-sexual harassment trainings are required, we do not have a clear understanding of who is being reached, how consistent those trainings are across agencies, or whether they are being implemented in a meaningful way. We also lack transparency around what happens after a complaint is made. This legislation would require more detailed reporting from DCAS on trainings, including who is being trained and how those trainings are delivered. It would also require city agencies to report on the outcomes of substantiated complaints while still protecting individuals' privacy. That level of transparency is essential if we expect these systems to function with credibility and consistency across agencies. In communities like Southeast Queens, where many residents work in public service, these issues are not abstract. They shape people's day-to-day experiences at work. People should be able to trust that clear processes are in place and that those processes are followed. If we are serious about improving workplace culture, it starts with transparency, consistency, and accountability. This bill moves us in that direction. Thank you, Deputy Speaker Williams, for sharing those remarks. Additionally, the committees will hear 3 resolutions sponsored by Councilmember Hudson. Reso number 250 calls upon the New York State Legislature to pass and the governor to sign legislation to ensure equal educational opportunity, basic civil rights protections, and laws and policies that prohibit bias-based victimization, exclusion, and erasure of LGBTQ+ young people in K-12 New York State schools, as called for in GLSEN's 2023-2024 Rise Up for Youth campaign. Resolution number 251 calls on Congress to pass and the President to sign the LGBTQIA+ package of legislation currently before Congress. And resolution number 252 celebrates the contributions of Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera to the LGBTQ+ rights movement in the United States. The committees will also hear pre-considered resolution number T26-1774, sponsored by Councilmember Ung. The resolution calls on the New York State Legislature to pass and the governor to sign S3394/A3226A, the Ceasing Repeated and Extremely Egregious Predatory Behavior Act, also known as CREEP. Finally, the committees will hear 2 resolutions sponsored by me, which include resolution number 352, calling on the United States Congress to pass and the President to sign H.R. 3562, the Defiance Act of 2025, to provide a federal civil cause of action for victims of non-consensual intimate digital forgeries. There's also resolution 393, sponsored by me and Councilmember Brewer, calling on the United States Congress to pass and the President to sign H.R. 7467/S3815, also known as Virginia's Law, in relation to eliminating the statute of limitations for civil lawsuits filed by survivors of sexual abuse and trafficking. Okay. Thank you to the members of the Women and Gender Equity Committee and the Technology Committee who have joined us today. And I would also like to thank committee staff, Julia Goldsmith-Pinkham, Katie Selena, Ali Stoffer, and Taylor Francisco, as well as my own staff, Dan Curtin and Josephine Karras, for their work on today's hearing. I would like to remind everyone who wishes to testify in person today that you must fill out a witness slip, which you can find on the desk of the Sergeant at Arms near the entrance of this room. Please fill out a slip even if you have already registered in advance that you will be testifying in person today. If you wish to testify on any of the legislation, please indicate on the witness slip whether you are here to testify in favor of or in opposition to the legislation. I also want to point out that we will not be voting on any legislation today. To allow as many people as possible to testify, testimony will be limited to 2 minutes per person, whether you are testifying in person or on Zoom. I'm also going to ask my colleagues to limit their questions and comments to 5 minutes. Please note that the witnesses who are here in person will testify before those who are signed into the Zoom webinar. I'll now turn it over to the Women and Gender Equity Committee Council to administer the oath.
Hello. In accordance with the rules of the council, I'll administer the affirmation to the witnesses. I'll call on you each individually for a response. Please raise your right hands. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth before these committees and to respond honestly to council member questions? Thank you.
Okay. Good morning, Chair Farias, Chair De La Rosa, members of the Committee on Women and Gender Equity, and the Committee on Technology. I'm Jennifer DeCarli, Deputy Commissioner for Family Justice Centers and Survivor Supports at the Mayor's Office to End Domestic and Gender-Based Violence, NGBV for short. NGBV supports survivors of domestic and gender-based violence by developing and delivering accessible and inclusive services to survivors, their families, and communities through collaboration with government agencies, community partners, survivors, and philanthropy. We strive to ensure that the city's services and resources reduce barriers, address gaps in services, and create new pathways to safety through program development, legislative and policy advocacy, research, and capacity building for service providers, city agency staff, and community members to identify and respond to domestic and gender-based violence. NGBV directly oversees a portfolio of prevention and intervention programming that includes services for survivors of domestic and gender-based violence and victims of other crime, and we operate the city's 5 borough-based family justice centers. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today regarding protections against harassment in the digital and physical spaces for women and gender-expansive people in New York City. Harassment affects all New Yorkers, but disproportionately impacts women and gender-expansive people. The World Health Organization estimates that 1 in 3 women experience physical and/or sexual violence in their lifetime. In the U.S., GLAAD's Alert Deaths report found that anti-LGBTQ+ incidents are widespread, with over half targeting transgender and gender nonconforming individuals. In response, NGBV continues to prioritize prevention through year-round training and public education. Over the past year, we have conducted 91 trainings, reaching more than 5,600 city staff, service providers, and community members to strengthen awareness and improve responses to harassment in both digital and physical spaces. NGBV provides a range of accessible survivor-centered services and referrals. Our borough-based family justice centers offer free, confidential, and trauma-informed support, including case management, safety planning, counseling, and legal assistance by co-locating city agencies and community providers to improve access to care. Services are available to all survivors, regardless of language, income, gender identity, or immigration status, with interpretation always available on site. NGBV also oversees New York City's 24/7 HOPE hotline, which, along with its chat feature, provides immediate support and connects victims of all crime to appropriate resources. We also operate prevention and intervention programs and work closely with community-based providers to ensure survivors can be connected to the services they need. The Relationship Abuse Prevention Program, called RAP, places counselors in middle and high schools to promote healthy relationships and support youth experiencing or witnessing violence. Our Home Plus program helps survivors remain safely housed by providing security upgrades, lock repairs, and flexible funding. In addition, our abusive partner intervention programs, Respect and Responsibility for Adults and Respect First for Youth, focus on trauma-informed accountability to change behavior and prevent future harm. NGBV has co-chaired the Street Harassment Prevention Advisory Board with the New York City Commission on Gender Equity since 2022, in accordance with Local Law 46 of that year. The board was created to study the occurrence of street harassment in New York City, identify people and communities most at risk, promote public awareness of street harassment, and develop programming, training, and a resource guide to prevent and respond to street harassment. In the fall of 2023, the board conducted a citywide survey to better understand the scope of street harassment, and we use these findings to inform a public awareness campaign that launched this April, right now, as part of Sexual Violence Awareness Month. Ads can be seen across transit and public spaces that highlight that unwanted remarks, touching, or photography are not harmless, they are harassment. The ads also include QR codes that help connect New Yorkers to multilingual resources and support. As more of our daily lives take place online, harassment has increasingly extended into digital spaces as well. According to Amnesty International, 38% of women have experienced online violence, and research from Pew Research Center shows that nearly half of U.S. teens have faced online harassment, with girls reporting higher levels of negative experiences. LGBTQ+ individuals, particularly transgender and gender nonconforming people, also face disproportionately high rates of online abuse. This form of harm, often referred to as technology-facilitated abuse, can include cyberbullying, online harassment, image-based abuse, doxing, stalking, and emerging threats such as AI-generated deepfakes and impersonation. These harms are often persistent and far-reaching and can escalate into real-world consequences, including coercion, physical violence, and long-term trauma. NGBV addresses technology-facilitated abuse through a combination of direct services, specialized interventions, and system-wide training. Through our family justice centers, survivors can access support that increasingly incorporates digital safety planning and referrals to specialized providers. We partner with Sanctuary for Families and Cornell Tech to support the Sanctuary Tech Abuse Clinic, STAC, which provides technology safety assessments and digital safety planning. Originally, this was called the CETA Clinic. It was developed through Cornell Tech's Clinic to End Tech Abuse, and this model has become a national example of how to help survivors identify, document, and prevent technology-facilitated abuse. In addition, we integrate this work into our broader prevention and response efforts by providing training and technical assistance to city agencies and community-based organizations. These trainings help frontline staff recognize and respond to evolving forms of abuse, including online harassment, cyberstalking, and misuse of digital tools. As harassment continues to evolve across both physical and digital spaces, NGBV remains committed to advancing survivor-centered, trauma-informed approaches that prevent harm and support survivors. We look forward to continued partnership with the Council to strengthen these efforts. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. I welcome any questions you may have.
Thank you so much for your testimony. How does NGBV define harassment, and where does it fit into the scope of the work that NGBV does against gender-based violence?
Yeah. So harassment is a type of abuse. It's a type of abuse that people who come into our centers and that come into community providers experience with frequent regularity. We define it as any type of unwanted harm that you're experiencing physically or digitally. So we really take a broad look at the definition of harassment. Obviously, our penal codes and our laws take a more kind of specific view, but we take a very broad lens when we're looking at harassment.
And how is the administration tracking the rates of harassment in New York City? Are we tracking at all? Are we getting it through certain agencies?
So the data that NGBV uses is our data that we get from NYPD. So NYPD does have defined crimes that look at this. So that would be one way that we could look at folks' experience of harassment. We operate the Family Justice Centers, but we don't provide the direct services. So the data that we collect there is more of a who did you meet with? What type of victimization are you experiencing? So we do not have direct specific numbers of folks coming in that say they're experiencing harassment. We know what services they were provided and what agencies they met with because that data is held by our providers.
And is the NYPD data that we've received disaggregated in any way where we can identify like gender identity, where the harassment took place, those types of things that maybe can give us a more detailed report out, or is it very basic to what the NYPD is supposed to be logging?
My understanding is it's looking at the data that comes from the domestic incident report. So it would be giving you the number of aggravated harassment complaints, the number of complaints that involve different types of harassment. But we can get back to you on that, and we can.
Yeah,
speak
I'd
to
like to
NYPD.
know if we're
Sure.
like disaggregating that information by gender identity or any other things that are helpful to NGBV's role or CGE's role in the city.
Sure.
You folks are conducting an anti-street harassment campaign right now. How is the information distributed, and how are you tracking the impact or successes of the campaign?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm going to defer to my colleague from CGE to answer that.
Well, first of all, thank you for having us here today.
You can pull the mic closer if it's easier. Yep.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for having the Commission on Gender Equity here today for this important conversation. So you asked about tracking the success of the campaign, right? So I know that the QR codes on the campaign posters lead folks to nyc.gov/endstreetharassment, and so we can see directly there, how many people go to that website, if there's like an increase in over the course of April. The other way we do this is, CGE and NGBV, we both, per local law 46 of 2022, we keep the resource guide on our website, and so we can track the number of downloads and even the views, I think. So we can tell, if there's like an uptick over the course of April, and we'd be happy to, talk to our communications teams and provide that information to you if we get an uptick over the course of the month. And I will just say, I know we have some estimates on the number of people we expect to see the campaign, so I think in Staten Island Ferry, the estimates are like 15 million impressions. On the subways, we're expecting to get 12 million impressions. And then we have a number of posters in Manhattan and Brooklyn, 75 of them, and 151 sidewalk decals in Queens and the Bronx. So it's quite a wide net.
Is there any chance that you folks are, with all the downtime that all of us have, ever cross-referencing maybe NYPD stats or 311 complaints versus the impressions that you're seeing on downloads to see if maybe there's a direct correlation between people researching what resources are out there for them versus what they're experiencing or reporting?
I'm not aware of that, Chair, but we can definitely look into that.
Okay.
It's a great suggestion.
Thank you. And aside from this, what awareness or educational campaigns has New York City conducted around harassment in the past? And is this the only tool that we're utilizing at the moment?
This is our first huge campaign on this issue. We are constantly doing training and prevention. I know as part of the Street Harassment Advisory Board that was convened in response to the local law to study this issue. Part of that was to convene trainings, and a lot of there was a survey done in 2023, and one of the things that most of the responses asked for was more training, particularly in bystander interventions, because that was identified through the survey as something people really wanted to see happen when they were being harassed. So I know that CGE has led training and is continuing to do that.
Yeah, and our communications and public engagement team is out in community at a very regular cadence in all 5 boroughs. They always have our resource guide with them in all 12 mandated languages, and so that's one way we're reaching people very regularly. I know last year we delivered 1,100 resource guides to the public in 4 languages. This year already we've delivered more than 250 in 4 languages. And the other way in which we are raising awareness is through our partnerships with a number of community-based organizations, especially Right to Be. We've partnered with them regularly for 6 years, and they have the curriculum on street harassment, bystander intervention training, and I think we've trained more than 800 people so far, and this year we're anticipating to really increase that number because it's CGE's 10-year anniversary, and so as part of that celebration, we're partnering with Right to Be on 10 different bystander intervention trainings over the course of the year.
That's great. Is NGBV monitoring workplace harassment complaints in the city?
So that's not part of our role, but what we are doing is working really closely with city agencies. EO 85 was passed that basically mandates every city agency to have a domestic and gender-based violence liaison at their agency and attend trainings and meetings with NGBV and have that person be looking at that city agency's response to domestic and gender-based violence. We also, as part of that work, have resource coordinators that are available to support the liaisons if city agency staff want to be connected to resources and supports. And we are currently working with DCAS on an online training module about domestic and gender-based violence and about the availability of these liaisons and what EO 85 says. We're just currently looking to identify a vendor.
How is the relationship or the consistency with working with each of the agencies? Are there some agencies that are non-responsive? Are there some agencies that maybe are not communicating consistently enough for us to know what their liaisons are up to or if they need any additional support?
So we've had a really good response. I mean, EO 85 requires each city agency to have a liaison, and so we have a email distribution list where they're all on that we do regular updates with. We have annual meetings, and they're very well attended, and folks do reach out, and when we have city employee staff coming into the family justice centers, we're able to quickly connect with liaisons and try to get support from them. So we've found a very positive response.
Great, thank you. Does NGBV work with 311 on referrals to hotlines or your programming at all?
We do. We have conversations with 311, and we have in the past, and I don't have the details on when, but I can get them to you. In the past, we have done training, and we have communicated with them regarding referrals. So when folks call, do you refer to the hotline? Do you refer to the family justice centers? And we continue to have those conversations.
Thank you. I'm going to yield my time to pass it over to Chair De La Rosa to ask some questions.
Thank you, Chair. I think the Chair asked this already in some way, but in terms of 311, what is the work that you all do with referrals to the hotline or your programming? Like, what is the coordination?
So 311, we've worked with them on their scripts. So if someone calls up and there are certain keywords that they say indicating that they're a victim of domestic violence or harassment, they're given the city's hotline, the HOPE hotline, as well as the family justice centers that they can turn to for support and services.
Great. Do you all work with the DOE on addressing online harassments in terms of school and students and cyberbullying?
So through our RAP programs, NGBV contracts with community-based providers to provide counselors in our middle and high schools. And so not-for-profit organizations hold those contracts, and then they work with the schools on those issues, and they also have counselors in schools.
Are there any educational programs related to online safety or intimate privacy targeting middle school students at this time?
Not that I'm aware of, but we can get back to you on that.
Okay.
I think it could be part of the RAP curriculum, but I don't want to misspeak. So I will get back to you.
Great. Are there any other programs by NGBV or its partners focusing on digital safety or digital privacy for parents and young adults?
So as part of the RAP program, I know they have done the Relationship Abuse Prevention Program.
RAP, yeah.
NGBV also has a youth advisory council, and so we take feedback from the youth, and I know that we have done targeted trainings for parents to support them in understanding the digital world. We've offered that training through our family justice centers in the past, and we can get you more details on that.
Great. Do you partner with any social media platforms or companies to raise awareness about online abuse and educate young people on digital hygiene, online safety, intimate privacy?
We don't at the moment. What we do is work really closely with Cornell Tech, who does have relationships with many of those companies, and we offer the CETA program and the STAC program. It's now called STAC through our family.
The names, I'm sorry. I'm having a hard time
That's okay,
hearing
and I'm having a hard time hearing all of you. I'm sorry. Move up. So right now at the Family Justice Centers, we have a partnership with Cornell Tech and Sanctuary for Families that was called the Clinic to End Tech Abuse.
Okay.
Cornell Tech has volunteers that do digital privacy safety checkups with survivors who come to the Family Justice Centers or referred there because they have concerns about digital safety and they're being harassed online. So we do that, and through that relationship, we have done a lot of training to raise awareness about online harassment, digital safety, and a lot of training for advocates to better understand how to do technology safety planning. I myself am not a technology safety expert, right? So we have to really train advocates to have those conversations with survivors so that they can properly respond to them.
Great. I did want to ask a little bit about the NYPD's data involvement in terms of the data, and I have another question too about the NYPD, but in terms of the data, how do you find the relationship for getting the data? How is that? Is it readily accessible? Does that information come mostly through, like, I know that the precincts have like domestic violence officers and things of that nature. How does that data come to you or flow?
So we work really closely with NYPD's domestic violence unit that's now part of the Chief of Detectives Department, and our Deputy Commissioner for Research and Evaluation has a really great working relationship with them, where when we ask for data, we're given that data. It's specifically being pulled from the domestic incident reports. As I'm sure you all know, when NYPD gets to the scene, it's a mandate in New York state law that they provide a domestic incident report. So much of the data that we're getting from PD is coming from those domestic incident reports, and we have found that to be a really great working relationship.
Great. And does the NYPD or the District Attorney's Office have qualified investigators who can assist victims in identifying online abusers or pursuing criminal charges to assist in online harassment in general?
Yeah, so I'm glad you asked that question. We've actually been working a lot with NYPD and the District Attorney's offices on targeted training. We are a member of NYPD's Training Advisory Board, and we're currently meeting regularly to develop video trainings for the entire force and in-person specialized trainings for the domestic violence detective investigators on all topics of domestic and gender-based violence, but we're actually currently crafting a video on stalking for the entire force that will have questions they have to answer, and part of that training will also have a civil attorney from Sanctuary for Families STAC clinic to talk about cyber stalking, because obviously online harassment is part of stalking, and so we want to make sure that the officers are aware of that and aware of resources that can support survivors of online harassment.
One of the issues that comes up with like cyber security around these types of attacks is identity theft, using people's personal information, personal images. What type of interventions does your office have if someone who is going through that situation comes and asks for assistance?
Yeah, so we would assign them to, so if they walked into the Family Justice Center, we would have them meet with a case manager first to kind of do, a basic safety planning, assess what issues they wanted to seek support from. If they were mentioning all of that during the screening, we would do a referral to the STAC program so they could meet with an expert to help them safety plan around that. Sometimes, it can get really complicated. If they do want to report that to police, we could help them meet with a police officer at the Family Justice Centers. We have one at every center. That wears plain clothes. They could meet with them. We could also talk to the district attorney's offices with permission, because everything is client-centered, if they gave us permission to see if what possible charges could be levied. The criminal justice system is hard. It's incident-based, right? And survivors, domestic violence is a pattern of behavior. It's hard sometimes with matching that up. And so we do everything we can if somebody wants to pursue the criminal justice remedy to help them navigate that and understand that. And we have found the DAs and NYPD to really be wanting to be strong partners in this. I mentioned the training. The DAs will be part of that training as well for domestic violence officers, and they really want to ensure their officers are aware of all the different tools that they could use to help someone.
We know that one of the ways that abusers often control their victims is through financial sort of exploitation, and when someone's identity is stolen, it's kind of impossible to kind of track down and figure out. Are there any special initiatives that are coming out of your offices when it comes to the financial abuse portion of it?
Yeah, so the Family Justice Centers and our other community partners do a lot of work helping survivors recover from financial abuse and understand the detrimental impact it's having on them. We have partnerships in some of our centers with financial counselors that can sit and meet with someone and really delve into their credit. If there's been identity theft, flagging that for credit bureaus, right, working through all those reports. And then if someone wants to make a report about identity theft to law enforcement, we can try to help them do that. That can be challenging because it can be hard to figure out who's doing it, right? But that's why we have those financial counselors and experts to help them navigate that.
Great. I want to pass it back to the chair for member questions. I also want to recognize that we've been joined by Councilmember Hanif on Zoom.
Thank you, Chair De La Rosa. We were also joined by Councilmember Juan. I'm going to pass it over to the two members before I ask additional questions. We have first up Councilmember Riley, followed by Aldabo.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning. Thank you so much for presenting to us today. Kind of want to get into your initiative when you're going into schools and speaking about healthy relationships. If you could just talk a little bit more about that, and at what age are you starting these conversations?
Sure. So the RAP program, the Relationship Abuse Prevention Program, is contracted with community-based organizations, and it begins in middle school, so 6th grade and up. And so we have middle school and high school, and there are counselors in select schools throughout New York City's school district system that have counselors on site to talk to people about healthy relationships, what it means for 6th graders, what does it mean to be a good friend, right? A lot of that starts there. What does respect mean in a friendship? And then we're in through high school and doing a lot more on teen dating violence and signs, to look out for. And as part of the counselors' jobs at those schools, they're doing workshops, in the schools. So that program is 6th through 12th grade.
And the reason why I'm asking is, I'm not sure if you saw it, there was a horrific video that came out probably a week or two ago with, and I don't have all the details, so I don't want to say anything I'm not supposed to, but I'm really just concerned about, teen dating, teen violence. A lot of our young people are still developing. They're developing emotions, their minds are still developing, but at the same time, they are getting into relationships, and it's really concerning, especially seeing a video like that. I have 2 daughters, I have a son. I'm just want to make sure that as a city, we're providing enough resources to make sure that we're kind of giving them the balance that they need to have these healthy relationships. So would love if we could connect. We could partner in my district. Would love to do it at some of my schools just to make sure that we're getting in front of this.
Yeah, I would love that, council member. We also work with Day One. I don't know if you know Day One. They're an amazing community-based organization that focuses specifically on teen dating violence. They are a great partner, so we would love to connect with you. I can share my information afterwards.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Councilmember Aldabo? Oh. Okay. A New York court can order content being taken down, especially where the content involves non-consensual intimate images, sexually explicit depictions, or digitally altered deepfake sexual material. Do we have any statistics on this, and do you know if any social media platforms honor these orders?
I don't have any statistics on it, but I can follow up with you, Chair Ferris. I know some of those laws are relatively new, and so I know there's been a ton of training, even for advocates, honestly, to understand them, to be able to work with survivors. So we continue to push out trainings and work with our partner agencies on that, so we can get back to you on that.
Yeah, that would be great, especially if there's going to be some coordination with getting information from the state or any data from the state. That would be really great. The Federal Take It Down Act was signed into law, as you mentioned recently, May of 2025, prohibiting the non-consensual online publication of intimate visual depictions of individuals, both authentic and computer-generated, and requiring online platforms to promptly remove such depictions upon receiving notice of their existence. Is NYBG planning to help inform victims under the Take It Down Act of their rights and access to the new federal mandates?
So as part of the STAC and CETA program that I mentioned, they are letting folks know of those rights. We also, I should have mentioned this before, we work, you mentioned about social media, so I didn't think of this, but we do work closely with like Uber and other kind of agencies. Uber actually supports our FJCs with free rides and Uber Eats, which is amazing. And we have worked with and been in spaces with Uber and other kind of corporate entities who now have digital and safety managers. And we've been part of those conversations. So I wanted to mention that as well. So we are informing folks of that.
Thank you for that. That's really great to hear. In 2020, the New York State Legislature passed Senate Bill 5959 and Assembly Bill 5605, which established a private right of action for unlawful dissemination or publication of sexually explicit depiction of an individual, including both authentic and computer-generated content. And in 2023, the state legislature passed Senate Bill number 1042 and Assembly Bill number 3596, which also makes this a criminal offense. How is NGBV helping to inform victims under these laws of their rights? Is it any similar to the Take It Down Act? And how to navigate any of the next steps?
So yeah, as part of the sessions that folks have with CETA and STAC to do digital safety planning, we're letting folks know of that. We're also doing, as part of that stalking training I mentioned with NYPD, and we do regular training through our family justice centers for all partners, not just folks who work at the FJCs, but on all different topics. So we have a Tech Abuse 101, and so we're talking in those trainings about these laws, because the laws are great, but they are really complicated. And so needing to like work with an advocate to try to help navigate it is really important. And raising awareness to the systems that the laws exist, right? If you're going into family court asking for an order of protection about that, it's a new law to the judge, right, too? And so making sure that all the systems are aware of it through trainings is one of our big focuses.
That makes a lot of sense. What remedies are generally available to victims under this law, and what amounts of damages, if you know of any, have the victims typically received in these cases?
I don't know of any specific cases, but we can get back to you. We can talk to our partners who've been supporting folks with it.
Thank you. The Defiance Act is currently being considered by Congress and provides a federal civil cause of action for victims of non-consensual intimate digital forgeries. Is NGBV prepared to help victims under the Defiance Act navigate the new federal civil right of action if and when passed?
If and when it was passed, we would be prepared to support them.
Okay. Great. I'm going to pass it over to Councilmember Alderwall before my final two questions.
I do have a question about the tech abuse clinic that you, is this clinic also available in schools for young people, middle school students?
It's unfortunately not. I wish it was. We work with Cornell Tech, as I mentioned, and so the clinic is actually supported by volunteers that are students. Many of them are like international students supporting those digital safety checkups, and we are doing everything we can to support Cornell Tech and Sanctuary for Families to expand the clinic, because it really is a national model. There's really no other kind of clinic that exists like this, within a family justice center setting, so we'd love to see it expand.
Thank you.
Thank you. How will NGBV's work change now that it is housed under the Office of Community Safety?
So that's a great question. We're currently in talks with our Deputy Mayor of Health and Human Services and our Deputy Mayor of Community Safety about the pending transition. NGBV just remains committed to ensuring that all of our services are as effective and accessible and client-centered as possible, and we'll continue to do everything to strengthen our relationships across city government. Our understanding is a lot of this transition is about not duplicating services, not operating in silos, and so we are committed to that, and we will continue to elevate the issue of domestic and gender-based violence to our leadership.
I've had a ton of feedback on the mayor's Executive Order 15 on this. I have had folks express some concerns about like a, quote unquote downgrading of NGBV and their concerns surrounding that. So, and just to put out there, like loss of efficacy, authority, specialization, even budget components are impacted. And I think generally about the message going out from the administration that this is damaging to NGBV's work. I just want to express the concern as well in ensuring that the focus and the mission of NGBV gets to be prioritized despite it being housed under the new Office of Community Safety. Can you speak to any conversations that maybe you're privy to with the administration, or any understandings on going forward how we're going to protect the focus or the prioritization of what the mission of NGBV is, and how that can be prioritized going forward?
Yeah, I mean, it's so new. The transition, as you know, was just announced. So we're still in conversation with our deputy mayors about this. My understanding, though, is the intent is not to take resources away, but in fact to ensure that resources are available and that all of our agencies are working together and not in silos to best support survivors of crime and domestic and gender-based violence. So we continue to be in those conversations.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Seeing no other additional questions, you folks are excused. Thank you so much for coming today and answering our questions.
Thank you for all your support. Thank you.
I now open the hearing for public testimony. I remind members of the public that this is a government proceeding and that decorum shall be observed at all times. Members of the public shall remain silent unless called upon to testify. All testimony must be relevant to today's hearing on protections against harassment in digital and physical spaces for women and gender-expansive people. If remarks stray from the subject matter, speakers will be reminded to the topic and be asked to refocus their comments. The witness table is reserved for people who wish to testify. No video recording or photography is allowed from the witness table. Further, members of the public may not present audio or video recordings as testimony, but may submit transcripts of such recordings to the Sergeant at Arms for inclusion in the hearing record. If you wish to speak at today's hearings, please fill out an appearance card with the Sergeant at Arms and wait to be recognized. When recognized, you will have 2 minutes to speak on today's oversight topic and or pieces of legislation. If you have a written statement or additional written testimony you wish to submit for the record, please provide a copy of that testimony to the Sergeant at Arms. You may also email written testimony to testimony@council.nyc.gov within 72 hours of this hearing. Audio and video recordings will not be accepted. I will now call the first panel. Lindsay Song, Kevin Conan, and Paulina Cohen. You can approach and sit. Lindsay can begin when ready.
There we go. Good morning, everyone. My name is Lindsay Song. Is that better? A little closer? Like that? Okay. I'll just like kind of eat it. There we go. Good morning. My name is Lindsay Song, and I'm the director of the Technology Facilitated Abuse Initiative at Sanctuary for Families, which is New York State's largest provider of exclusively devoted to services and advocacy on behalf of victims of domestic violence and sex trafficking. And we are so grateful for the opportunity to testify today. And I just wanted to note in my current role at Sanctuary that I provide trainings to law enforcement, the district attorney's offices, NYPD, 911 dispatchers, judges, and judicial staff around cybercrimes and intimate partner violence. And the civil legal attorney that Carly was mentioning before, that is me. So I'm happy to answer any questions if the committee has any on some of the trainings. I'm also a practicing attorney and have practiced in New York City family courts for 11 years now, addressing takedown requests around intimate image abuse and various forms of technology facilitated violence. And I just want to note that, as aptly noted in the committee report, tech-facilitated abuse does disproportionately impact women and girls as well as gender-diverse individuals. And we know from research and from years of victim services at Sanctuary and our partners, I also chair the New York Cyber Abuse Task Force, which is a group of nonprofit advocates, attorneys, civil advocates, therapists, law enforcement, others around the intersection of technology-facilitated abuse and gender-based violence, that the most dangerous forms of technology-facilitated abuse come in the context of intimate partner violence, where an abuser can weaponize knowledge from the closest of relationships to abuse, exploit, harass, and threaten their victims through online platforms. Even since 2023, when we delivered remarks to this very committee on this topic, we've seen a vast increase in the use of digital technologies to perpetrate intimate partner violence, including specifically an increase in the use of smart devices, Bluetooth and internet-enabled devices, such as AirTags, connected cars, which there was recent legislation last year that we promoted and was ultimately passed to monitor, stalk, and harass victims. For example, a recent client seeking services and leaving her abusive partner came to one of the city's family justice centers. This is actually a client of mine, which of course is run by NGBV. And at the time, she told her abuser she was traveling to a new library with her children. When she came back to the FJC a week later, her abuser texted her demanding, "Why are you back at that same library again?" And she later discovered that he had installed a tracking device on her car that he was using to monitor all of her movements. And in response to that, we were able to pass legislation that requires car dealers and auto manufacturers to remove access to abusive partners when a victim self-identifies as a victim to a car dealer or manufacturer, which was not in place before 2025. We've also seen an explosion in image-based abuse, including the creation of digital forgeries, which was noted by the committee. And according to UN Women, digital sexual images now make up 98% of all AI deepfake videos online, and 99% of the individuals targeted are women. And many applications simply do not work on male-oriented bodies. If you put in a body that is not female, it will literally spit out a female-identified body because the technology is created to create images of women and girls. Tech-facilitated abuse causes extreme emotional and even physical harm, and we know that there's a high lethality factor. 76% of homicide victims were stalked prior to their murder, and partners who stalk, including online stalking, are more likely to threaten, use a weapon, sexually assault, and/or physically injure or kill their victims. And the harms caused by these forms of abuse are pervasive. But I do want to be mindful of time and move on to a few proposals that I have from Sanctuary for Families that we urge City Council to join in supporting survivors of intimate partner violence. First, the New York City Council was a leader in passing the first municipal code provision in the country, banning unlawful disclosure of intimate images back in 2017. And we applaud the council's prescience in including threats to disseminate intimate images in this law, which often are more damaging, if not as damaging, as the actual production of the images itself. However, it's become clear in the 9 years since that change is needed to align the code with New York State legislation and statewide legislation. Every state and most territories have legislation around unlawful dissemination of intimate images, and New York State includes images created by digitization. The New York City Council law does not. That has not been updated, so we'd ask that that be modified to align. Additionally, the original...
I'm sorry, Lindsay, I'm going to have to cut you off just
Sure.
because you're over, but we do have your testimony in
Certainly.
person, so we will refer to that. Thank
Certainly.
you so much.
Thank you very much.
You can begin when ready.
Check. Okay. My name is Kevin Conan. I'm a candidate for Assembly in Astoria District 36. I'm here to listen to some of the testimony down here, and I think the city is the biggest violator of equality. You were only here a couple of weeks ago with the probationary officers and how little they can progress in their salary as compared to, the men dominated careers. They went from maybe 45,000 up to 53,000, and that's not very good when you want to have equality. So the city's the biggest
while
violator.
we're on I just want to keep you to topic. This is about the hearing topic today, which is about the digital harassment, sexual harassment in digital and physical spaces.
Okay,
Not
so
on wage inequality. So if you can get back to topic, that would be great.
yeah, you said there was other issues we could talk about when you were talking before. Okay, so
Testify on the issues of this hearing topic. Would you like me to restate the hearing topic?
all right. So basically, we all agree. All of these laws that you're putting through are already in the books. If the courts would enforce them, maybe we could get some, a little bit of satisfaction from what the government's doing. I mean, you're making $142,000 a year. You're raising your salaries 16% pretty soon.
I'm gonna have to
And I
interrupt
think
again.
the
Are you
city
going
needs to
stay
hear why
topic? If
they're
I-
not doing anything for the
Okay,
people.
sergeants, if you can mute his mic, he's not staying to topic. You can see him out of the hearing. Thank you so much for coming to testify.
Very good. Yep.
Paulina,
I'm fine with
when
that.
you are ready to begin, you can begin.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for holding this hearing today. My name is Paulina Cohen. I'm here on behalf of the New York City Anti-Violence Project, where I serve as a senior staff attorney. We appreciate the council holding this hearing, and AVP has long been at the forefront of New York, the city's fight against hate and oppression, offering critical support to LGBTQ and HIV-affected survivors of all forms of violence. We also run the city's only 24-hour crisis hotline for LGBTQ survivors. We see that for LGBTQ plus individuals, especially transgender and gender expansive New Yorkers, harassment in digital and physical spaces is all too common. These harms are not separate, but form part of one continuum of harm. We regularly see this connection between harassment in digital and physical spaces and how these harms can escalate. Harassment may begin, for example, online through threats, doxing, manipulated or non-consensual images, and then escalate into in-person stalking, workplace harassment, or physical violence. Digital abuse we see is often a first warning sign, not the least serious form of harm. What can begin as harassment on social media can quickly escalate to personal information being disseminated, followed by threats that make the person no longer feel safe leaving their home. In other words, harm that starts online does not necessarily stay there, and it can move into every part of someone's life. We support the resolutions under consideration by the committees today as part of a broader effort to strengthen protections for the LGBTQ+ communities. These are all necessary steps. From ensuring safe and inclusive schools, advancing federal civil rights protections, and addressing emerging forms of harm like non-consensual digital forgeries or otherwise manipulated images that my panel member has also mentioned. However, the road does not end here. Digital harm is often minimized to the detriment of survivors, who are often told to simply block or ignore those who are harming them, or just to disappear themselves from online spaces, rather than seeing meaningful accountability for the people actually causing the harm. So we urge the city to continue investing in survivor services like AVP by ensuring culturally competent responses from law enforcement and city agencies, recognizing that New Yorkers, and particularly those groups most impacted by violence, women, transgender and gender nonconforming people, people of color, undocumented immigrants, low-income survivors, and sex workers face heightened risks. I'm just gonna close up here. It also means treating community-based organizations like us as thought partners in this area. We are on the front lines of these issues, and we can help the city respond to evolving forms of harm in ways that put survivors' needs and stories first. New Yorkers deserve to be safe on and offline, and right now, too many are not. So I thank you for your time. Thanks.
I only have one question for Lindsay. You were talking about the need for the update in the legislation. Can you just, I'm sorry, I missed the train of thought. Can you just tell me what piece of the legislation needs updating?
Absolutely. So currently, administrative code now it's codified as 10180. It does not include digitized or deep fake images.
Okay.
So specifically, the New York State law was amended in 2023, as I believe you noted. I know it was noted to include that, and many states, most states now include that as well, recognizing that authentic images are not the only type of images that can be weaponized. The other change is to remove the covered recipient requirement. The city council had included this requirement to prevent kind of the fear of downstream distributors, that once one person sent it, that it would be kind of sent through a school and there would be all these prosecutions of young people. That has not come to pass, and no other law that I have found in any of the other states includes such an onerous requirement. And we have found, as service providers, and I'm actually providing a training to the Brooklyn DA's office today. I train all kinds of DA's offices and law enforcement on this issue, that it really prevents the effective use of the law, which otherwise is a great law because it does include threats to distribute the intimate images. And so we'd ask for those two changes to include digital images and to remove the covered recipient requirement.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Thank you for testifying. This panel is now excused. I'm going to call up our next two panelists, Christina Sparak and Galloway. I think so. It's okay.
Awesome, thank you.
Can you just state your name for the record?
Yeah, good morning, Chair and members of the Committee on Women and Gender Equity. My name is Galloway. Thank you so much for hosting today's hearing. I'm here on behalf of the Ali Forney Center, where we work to protect and empower LGBTQ young people, as well as a proud leader of the New York City Trans and Queer Coalition. We're a statewide and citywide coalition that helps to protect the safety of those that are experiencing marginalization, especially in the cross sections of trans and queer New Yorkers. So I want to lean in on that a little bit. So for trans and queer New Yorkers, especially those who are navigating multiple forms of marginalization, gender-based violence shows up across all spaces, physical and digital, in workplaces, on the streets, and shelters, and especially in public-facing roles. So people facing harassment, the discrimination shows up in very harmful ways through violence, not only in these physical spaces, but also in online spaces through harassment, outing, doxing, and targeted abuse that can directly impact someone's safety, employment, and mental health. These harms are deeply connected, and without strong systems of accountability, they often go unaddressed. So I want to address the strong support of Intro 1761, as well as the resolutions of 0250, 0251, and 0252, because what these bills will do, they help to take the important step towards strengthening the accountability and transparency across the workforce place, which we're seeing a lot of sexual harassment, especially for queer and trans New Yorkers who have a hard time receiving employment, and when they do, they're just met with harassment and not met with those safety protections. So that bill is going to really help strengthen those trainings, so that way we can start to make changes by improving through transparency, through strengthening reports that are required, and ensuring that there are climate surveys and action plans that have meaningful, consistent change. So just wanted to highlight that because New York has a strong position in itself to be a leader of equity and inclusion. So by passing Intro 1761, it's an opportunity to line that up with the promises that we're making to ensure that trans and queer New Yorkers can be able to feel safe in the workplace and beyond that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You can begin, Christina.
Do I keep it down?
As long as the light is on, then you...
We hear you. Okay. Yeah, you're good. Thank you so much. I'm sorry. So my name is Christina Sparrow. I just came here really to observe, but I really I felt compelled to share my story. So women with disabilities experience intimate partner violence double the rate of able-bodied women. IPV can look like what this community is like removing service animals, denying people with their medication, taking their Social Security benefits. Oh my God, my phone is ringing. Stop. Okay. I worked as a consultant at Rikers Island, training on crisis intervention training, and my boss, who was the former commissioner, used to grope me regularly. I went along with it. I laughed because I wanted to keep my job. I'm a disabled person, and I just wanted to work. When I reported it eventually to EEOC, to Inspector Generals at Department of Corrections, this person is very, very, very influential and powerful. He sent my information to the GRV unit where I had inmates start to call me, threatening to rape me and kill me. I couldn't follow through with my investigation because I was afraid. And once EEOC dropped my investigation, this man showed up at my home, and I saw other people, men, that were very intimidating. And luckily, I live in a very busy neighborhood. My phone has been hacked, my computer has been hacked, and there's no justice served, and this man still works at Rikers Island, and I want justice. I recommend that there be like some kind of oversight committee or some kind of committee for women with disabilities in intimate partner violence relationship, because we're never seen, we're never heard, and we die, and nobody will ever know about us. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your story and for uplifting it for not only yourself, but for all New Yorkers. This is the space to uplift that narrative and to give us that action item to look into. So we really appreciate you testifying today, especially since you just came to observe and see what we were doing and felt compelled to share your story. So we really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. This panel is now excused. Thank you so much for coming to testify. Seeing no one signed up to testify in person or virtually, the public comment period is now closed, and this hearing is adjourned.